This is by the channel Don't Look at Me. Photos with disturbing backstories. This was requested by Underground. Kevin, thank you for the gifted membership, man. Appreciate it. I have to send you some games on Steam. Underground, yeah, man, once I save up and I'm able to get the new computer, hopefully within the next couple months, I'll be able to save up and get a new computer. There's tons of scary games on Steam and stuff that I want to play, so that should be a lot of fun. But Kevin, again, thank you for the gifted membership, man. Let's check out photos with disturbing backstories by the channel Don't Look at Me.
Living in Monument, Colorado was a 13-year-old boy named Dylan Redwine who lived with his mother Elaine and brother Corey. Dylan was one of the many unfortunate children who had to experience his parents separating at a young age.
Oh gosh.
He regularly went on court-ordered visits with his father, Mark Redwine, who resided in the rugged and mountainous landscape of La Plata County, nestled in the southwestern area of Colorado. And you may assume that a son would rejoice whenever he gets the chance to spend more time with a parent that he isn't always with. However, this was not the case with Dylan. Dylan found little to no joy in spending time with his father and had intentionally avoided these encounters for several months. The root cause of this can be traced back to a distressing incident that occurred at his father's house the previous year. In the summer of 2011, specifically in June, Dylan, accompanied by his older brother Corey, visited his father's home. While the brothers were using their father's laptop, they inadvertently stumbled upon some very disturbing images. At the time, Mark was asleep, so the brothers took the laptop and ran to the bathroom and locked themselves in. Displayed on the screen were images of their father Mark clad in a wig and woman's lingerie, cradling what seemed to be a soiled diaper.
What the actual hell, bro? Oh, imagine getting your dad's computer and seeing pictures of your dad. I'd be like, Dad, I'm leaving. I'm going back to mom's house.
The brothers went through all of the images, and that's when they realized something. Their father appeared to be consuming the contents of the diaper. Corey brought out his phone and took pictures of these unsettling images, marking a turning point in how Dylan perceived his father. So over the following year, Dylan distanced himself, becoming more withdrawn and fighting with the decision to confront his father about this discovery. On November 19th, 2012,
I'm sorry, I would never go see my dad again. If I got his computer and saw pictures like that on it, I'd be like, sorry, Dad, you're into some weird shit, literally. And I don't want to see you anymore. You're a little disturbed, I think.
Court mandate made Dylan visit his father for Thanksgiving.
Oh my
Dylan's mother Elaine didn't really want to send him off though, since she recognized he changed in his behavior. He was showing
Yo, Momo, thank you for being a member for 9 months. Yes.
Obvious signs of distress and discomfort. For what reason, though, she had no idea. In the end, Dylan agreed.
This picture right here of this kid, Dylan, looks very familiar. I don't remember this story, but this picture looks very familiar. I wonder at some point over the years if maybe I heard this story, I just don't remember it. But this picture here looks very familiar for some reason.
But before he went off, he went to his brother Corey and gave him a request. Dylan asked him to send over those images that they took from their father's laptop. Dylan was mustering up the courage and confidence to ask his father about these images and hopefully
the dad. Oh gosh, I swear. If Dylan confronts his dad about these weird pictures on his laptop or his computer, whatever it was. Oh, I really hope the dad doesn't do something to Dylan. Like he's scared his weird fetish or his weird secret photos are going to get exposed to other people. If he hurts his own son, I swear.
Share the information with his brother Corey when he got back. However, Corey would never get to see his brother ever again.
Oh no.
On November 18th, 2012, Mark Redwine picked up his son from the airport. Surveillance footage at both the airport and a local Walmart in Durango showed little interaction between the father and son.
He's gonna hurt.
Dylan asked his father if he could spend the night with a friend upon arrival, but Mark insisted otherwise, and they both spent the evening at Mark's residence. Through text messages, Dylan organized a visit to his friend's house at around 6:30 a.m. the following morning, with his last known communication on his phone occurring at 9:37 p.m. the previous night. When Dylan's friend texted him at around
Did the dad freaking kill Dylan? I have a bad feeling about this.
6:46 a.m. on November 19th, asking about where he was. There was no response. On the night of November 19th, 2012, Mark reported that his 13-year-old son, Dylan, was missing. News of Dylan's disappearance spread fast, leading to a large search and rescue operation. After Dylan went missing, his dad acted in a way that seemed strange for a parent whose child is lost. Mark stayed home, and he didn't even try to find Dylan. When media went to interview him, he seemed rather withdrawn. Months were invested into the search effort, but due to the rough terrain and high elevation of Durango, little success was made. Despite numerous efforts to locate him, Dylan remained missing, and no new information came in about his whereabouts. On January 31st, 2013.
Yeah, that's really sus that Dylan goes to see his dad and then he asks to stay at a friend's house, and then all of a sudden, like, Dylan just vanishes. He goes missing. Nobody can find him. Something very suspicious is going on here.
2013, Mark participated in an exclusive interview blaming himself for his son's disappearance.
He was on Dr. Phil?
Mark, Dylan was asleep when he woke up that morning, and upon returning from running some errands, he discovered that his son was missing. Now, the public initially sympathized with the father, not knowing any better, but the public will soon learn how undeserving Mark was of this sympathy. On June 26, 2013, the case would make new headlines, but not for the reasons people...
That's probably why this picture of Dylan looks so familiar, because it was on TV. It was on... People in the chat, you guys are saying it was on Dateline. I probably saw it on TV at some point. That's why the picture of Dylan here looks so familiar.
Hoping for. Human remains, including a segment of Dylan's shirt and a sock, were unearthed in a secluded location on Middle Mountain, roughly 8 miles from Mark's home. Following some testing, it was determined that the recovered remains were indeed those of the missing Dylan Redwine. When the search parties were informed about the location in which Dylan was found, they were taken aback, as that particular area was very difficult to get to. It was tough to believe that a child who was unfamiliar with the area was able to find their way to it. This prompted the suspicion that foul play...
Yeah, and to be 8 miles from his dad's house... 8 miles is pretty far to travel on foot, especially for a 13-year-old kid. That's very strange.
It was involved. Mark Redwine subsequently became a person of interest, and the cause of his son's death was officially labeled as undetermined. Investigators uncovered traces of Dylan's blood in various parts of Mark's home, including the laundry room, living room, and kitchen. However, Mark vehemently denied any connection to his son's death. Only on November 1st, 2015, a full 2 years later, was Dylan's skull located. Autopsy findings indicated that the cause of death was blunt force trauma.
They found Dylan's skull? Oh my gosh, the freaking dad did it. The dad was scared that his weird photos were going to be leaked, or his son Dylan was going to tell people about his weird photos on his computer. Literally killed his own son? Are you kidding me?
To the head. Nearly 2 years following the grim discovery, on July 22nd, 2017, Mark was apprehended in Bellingham, Washington. He faced charges of second-degree murder and child abuse related to Dylan's death. Following multiple delays, Mark's trial commenced on June 14th, 2021. The defense argued that the minimal amount of blood discovered in Mark's kitchen was infinitesimally small and could have occurred in any household. Defense attorney John Moran went further, asserting that using dog-sniffing death scent techniques was deemed quote-unquote junk science.
This is crazy.
The defense's effort to explain Dylan's death as an accident,
what's up, Aaron?
That he might have wandered off, and
thanks for stopping by, bro.
Due to the elements or an animal attack, Mark was declared guilty on all charges on July 16th. The unsettling photos presented to the jury played a crucial role in the verdict. It was ruled that Mark Redwine killed his son in a fit of rage after being shown the images.
That's exactly what I said, guys. The dad was super mad that his son found these photos, and literally, that's just crazy.
was sentenced to 48 years in prison on October 8th, 2021. Dylan's mother and brother were devastated, and Corey said the following: "It's been nothing short of misery over the years." Corey also often thinks about how he could have helped protect
Dylan. Only
he
13.
Said, "I can't bring Dylan back. I can't talk to Dylan, so I pray to him. I dream of him. Dylan is my hero and became more of a man in 13 years than Mark became in 60.
Wow. Jeez, is that the jump scare?
At 9:30 p.m. on June 3rd, 1991, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a trucker named...
What is this one? Becca.
Eduardo Collin decided to call it a night and checked into a Super 8 motel. The motel staff
his dad does look creepy, right?
To be alone, yet he requested a room suitable for 2 people. Eduardo paid in cash for a one-night stay and was instructed to check out
underground.
by 11
Gotcha.
a.m. the following morning.
Ooh, that
he
scared
nodded,
me.
Smiled, and proceeded toward his room. Throughout his stay, there was no communication from Eduardo. However, a few days later, motel staff...
Her face gave me goosebumps. Oh, yeah, underground, that startled me a little bit. I'm like, what the heck? That's no good.
Staff noticed that Eduardo hadn't checked out. Finding this unusual, they sent a security guard to investigate why Eduardo hadn't left. Upon reaching the room, the guard saw a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door. He knocked but received no response. Attempting to turn the knob, he found out that the door was locked. After some effort using a screwdriver, the guard gained entry, but he realized the room was completely empty.
Are they gonna find...
On the table, there were bottles of beer, cigarettes, and several other items that didn't initially raise any concern.
Are they gonna find like a body or something in this hotel room? Like a freaking body under the bed or some crap?
The guard continued.
I have heard some stories of like crimes that happened in hotel rooms, and they like try to hide the body underneath the bed in the hotel. Oh, hell no.
His investigation and made his way into the bathroom. There, he made a grim discovery.
Oh, bathroom.
Secured to the shower head was the lifeless body of a woman. Despite clear signs of decay, medical investigators were certain that this unidentified woman had passed away on the very same day Eduardo checked into the motel.
Oh, damn.
Additionally, traces of illicit substances were found in her body. And the image you're seeing on screen right now is the photo that was found on the room desk. The unsettling nature...
It's scary that the lady, she's like completely white. She looks like a ghost.
Is the one detail most often remembered about the case. The woman appeared to be in her mid-20s to early 30s and stood at about 5'7"
She looks like a ghost.
When motel staff was shown the image, they didn't recognize the woman, although they confirmed that the man in the photo was indeed Eduardo. Despite obtaining Eduardo's personal information from the motel staff and confirming that it was legitimate for the most part, it would take a couple of years before police could locate him, or rather they would find his family. And it turned out
they couldn't find him for a couple, did it say a couple years, or they found his family? Eduardo just like freaking disappeared.
That Eduardo had died, but here's the confusing
part. Oh, he died?
Police pulled out that photograph from the motel and
What's
shared
up,
it with
Crazy
the family,
Michael?
But they stated that the man in the picture was not Eduardo. They also had no idea who the woman was. So if this man was not Eduardo, then who could it be? Investigators went back to look at all of the clues and evidence that they had, and there was one piece that may shed some light on the case. On that motel room table, there was a scale with the name George Martinez written on it. Investigators believe that the device was...
Who the hell is George Martinez? Because the dude we're talking about, his name's Eduardo, not George. What?
Used primarily to organize illegal substances. This gave rise to theories suggesting that the female may have been a victim in a deal gone wrong. In an attempt to gather new information from the public about either people in the photo, the original version was altered. In this updated photograph, which is oddly enough even more unsettling, the woman appears with a more neutral expression.
Why is this lady so creepy looking?
Fast forward to March 2021, police received a tip that suggested that the woman was named Becca and that she was originally from California. And to my knowledge, this possible identity was never heavily looked into and was thus never confirmed. As for the man, police still have zero idea who he is and have yet to identify him. When Becca's
So this is an unsolved, oh my gosh, I paused this at a creepy thing.
Body was discovered, it was believed that she had
Underground wasn't joking about jump scares in this. So this is pretty much an unsolved case. They don't know who the man is and they really don't know who the woman is. That's weird.
Had taken her own life, but there are now many people that suspect foul play was involved.
Andrew McCauley?
Andrew
Who's
McCauley
this?
was an Australian mountaineer and sea kayaker born on August 7th, 1968. Andrew was a very ambitious individual that strived for the toughest of goals set by himself.
Is this the dude who got stranded at sea? This guy looks familiar. Is this the guy who got stranded at sea and he died on a kayak or some type of boat?
In fact, in 2003, Andrew made the first non-stop crossing of Bass Strait via kayak. The very next year, he kayaked across the Gulf
I think I
of
remember
Carpentaria.
this. I remember
2 years
this guy.
After that, he led an expedition in the Australian Antarctic Territory where the group crossed over 800 kilometers. It was becoming clear that Andrew was much too skilled for his own good. He needed that next challenge to really test himself. He set the goal of crossing the Tasman Sea in a standard one-man kayak without any outside help. Now, it should be stated that this has been done before, but those adventurers all had custom kayaks that were...
I've never heard of the Tasman Sea. It's between New Zealand and Newcastle? That's interesting.
Built for extreme conditions. If successful, the journey was well over 900 miles and would take over a month to complete. Not only
900 miles in a kayak? I think I'll pass on that.
Was the challenge going to be long, but it was also going to put his mentality to the test as Andrew was going to have little to nothing to eat or drink. Andrew would set off for his attempt in December of 2006, but quit only a night later. The reason being that the kayak was freezing cold and Andrew had no way of preserving any heat in his kayak.
Damn!
Luckily, Andrew was able to get home safely, but this small hiccup was not going to keep him away from the sea for very long as he would return to it in January.
He should have never went back out. He made it back home safely the first time and Andrew's like, I'm going to go back out and try to do it again. And yeah, I think we all know how this is going to end.
Of the next year. This time around, Andrew was all ready to combat the extreme temperatures that he would face out at sea. Andrew would frequently contact his...
No way I'm doing 900 miles in a kayak. Yeah, Raphael, I know. Me either. I wouldn't do that.
Family via radio and let them know that he was doing great. He was about halfway done with the journey and it seemed like smooth sailing from there on out. However, things would take a turn for the worse very quickly. As Andrew was nearing the end, violent waves began to crash into his kayak, suddenly making the latter half of the trip significantly more difficult.
Landrick,
This was not to mention the other conditions which
he did
have
not
also
survive.
worsened. And keep in mind, Andrew wanted to beat this challenge with a normal run-of-the-mill kayak. It was February 9th when Andrew made an emergency call saying, "Do you copy? This is Kayak 1. Do you copy? Over. I've got an emergency situation. I'm in a kayak about 30 kilometers from Milford Sound. I need a rescue. My kayak's sinking. Fell off into the sea and I'm going down.
Sinking?
But rescue would not find Andrew until it was too late. In fact, they would never find Andrew at all, but what they did find was his kayak, bobbing in the sea about 30 nautical miles from the journey's endpoint.
So Andrew's body fell into the water and they just never found him. He just disappeared. Oh, that would be a terrible way to go.
This discovery was made on February 12th. I want to quickly mention that Andrew's kayak came
very
with this
dangerous,
fiberglass dome cover that was supposed to provide shelter for him. Now, whenever his kayak would flip over due to the way the dome was constructed, Andrew needed to exit the kayak and flip it over manually.
Terrible way to go.
Andrew somehow lost this dome, ultimately leading to his demise. Andrew's remains were never located, but on the kayak were these photos that he took of himself in his final moments.
Damn. Skylar Neese.
In Star City, West Virginia, lived Skylar Neese, a 16-year-old girl with her parents David and Mary. During her childhood,
I don't think I've ever heard of this story here. Skylar Neese. Yeah, these photos don't look familiar. Normally, if I've seen a photo or heard about a story in the past, I'll kind of remember it, but Skylar Neese, that does not sound familiar.
Skylar had a best friend named
He probably got hypothermia, guys. Or he drowned, it's possible. I'm not sure. They never found him, so they never found Andrew's body, so it's hard to say what happened, you know?
Morgan Lawrence. In the earlier years of their friendship, the two were inseparable, but just like with most friendships from such a young age, it dwindled as the two grew older. Nevertheless, Morgan still saw Skylar as someone in her circle, almost like a family member. Another close friend of Skylar's was named Sheila Eddy. Together, the two girls started high school and met another girl named Rachel Schoaf. This group of girls went on to grow very close and hung out with each other whenever they could. Teachers and classmates did mention that the group tended to be rather rambunctious, and there were even rumors that they would use illegal substances and partake in underage drinking at parties.
That's never good.
To July 6th, 2012, Skylar went to a local Wendy's.
Dark Warlock, what's up, man?
Where she worked. This particular shift took place well into the night, so she didn't return home until very late.
What's up, Bridgeton?
When she did, she immediately went to her room and went to sleep. The next day, Skylar's dad, David, knocked on Skylar's bedroom door but received no response. In fact, the door had been locked. David was able to eventually get past the door with the use of a coat hanger, but to his shock, Skylar was nowhere to be found. He immediately called his wife Mary to inform her that their daughter was missing, but Mary seemed to not think much of this and told David that
Nick.
she was probably hanging out with some friends. So David calmed down a little and went out for a smoke. That's when he noticed that Skylar's bedroom window was wide open, and outside of the house at the bottom of the window was a little stool. David thought to himself that Skylar had just snuck.
Yep, Skylar snuck out of the house. Or was she taken? Was she kidnapped? Did she sneak out of the window? Who knows?
Out in the middle of the night and was intending to use the stool to get back inside, so he just left it and went about his day.
True crime,
After about
scary
6
stuff.
hours, Skylar's family members were surprised to receive a call from Skylar's manager saying that she had not shown up for work. At this point, Skylar's family was beginning to panic. Never once had Skylar ever missed work or even arrived late, so they called the police. When police searched Skylar's room, they noticed that most of her personal items had been left behind, indicating that she did intend to return. Around this time is when Skylar's friend Sheila called the family. She was crying non-stop, saying that Skylar, Rachel, and herself went out last night, and when they were going to return home, Skylar asked to be dropped off at a street corner instead of her house. Sheila claimed that this happened just before midnight and she has not heard from Skylar.
Is this all a made-up story by Sheila, or did they really drop Skylar off somewhere and she got like kidnapped or something? Or did these two girls do something to Skylar and they're trying to make up a fake story? I don't know.
Since, which at the time of the call would have meant about 18 hours had passed. So obviously, now everyone was beginning to think that Skylar had been kidnapped. Police were able to get their hands on some.
Yeah, that's what I would think, that she was kidnapped, but I think these two girls, her two friends, did something to her.
CCTV footage which shows Skylar running towards a 3-door car and getting into the back seat.
What?
This footage was captured right behind the house.
Was she like meeting up with a guy or something?
Was not hers and that she did not recognize it. Unfortunately, police were not able to track down the vehicle, but they did assume that it belonged to someone that Skylar knew as she voluntarily entered it. To the police, this appeared as though Skylar was a runaway teen. Then on July 11th, there was news that somewhere in North Carolina was a girl who appeared to be Skylar, accompanied by a red-haired girl. Being that she was red-haired, everyone thought that this other girl was Rachel, which just confused more people as Rachel was supposed to be at a church.
Yeah, this is a very confusing story here.
Camp. However, Rachel would return home from camp, and during her interview, investigators noticed that she was unnaturally nervous. It was during their questioning that they realized either Rachel or Sheila isn't telling the truth.
They did something to Skylar.
Asked Sheila to take them through the path that they took to return home that night.
Rachel or Sheila, or both of them, had something to do with Skylar disappearing. I guarantee it. Something fishy's going on here. Something weird.
Then they did the same thing with Rachel, and they both gave different stories. It was noted that the girls were in Blacksville around 4 a.m. and
what's creepy is that there's hundreds of missing people on the Walmart board where I work at Walmart. Yeah, I know. I see those. There's people go missing every day. You know, I read something a while back as far as missing people and like active serial killers in the United States nowadays in 2024. They say there's like only 5 to 10% of murders ever get caught. There's like 90 to 95% of murders never get solved. So there's a lot of bad people out there they've never been caught yet. Or maybe they'll never be caught. That's really scary to think that most crimes never get solved.
Rachel claimed that they were there to smoke. Then Skylar requested that she be dropped off at a friend's to get some other substances. The other girl said okay and dropped her off at Skylar's friend's house. Sheila revealed a similar story, but there was one key difference. Sheila said that Skylar left by herself to her friend's house and they haven't seen her since. The very next day, Sheila retracted the statement and said that she and Rachel did in fact drop Skylar off. The investigation continued and police were of the
crazy thing is there's over 10,000 serial killers in America alone. Really, Underground? I never heard that statistic. There's over 10,000 active serial killers that have just never been caught. Ugh. Yeah, that's scary to think about.
The opinion that Sheila
and what percentage of them will ever get caught in their life? Probably a very small percentage.
And Rachel definitely knew more than they were letting on. But it wasn't like police had any hard evidence to charge them with. So about 5 months after Skylar's disappearance, Rachel began showing signs of instability. Her mental health was rapidly declining and she began lashing out at people.
Rachel's gonna spill the beans. The redhead here is Rachel, right? The friend? Was a friend of Skylar. I'm not sure what her or Sheila, what their involvement was in Skylar's disappearance, but I think she's going to spill the beans. I think Rachel's going to spill the beans and say and admit what happened. I feel like her conscience, or she can't live with herself. She's going to tell people what happened, I think.
For very stupid reasons. She was sent to a psychiatric unit and let out in less than a week. After being let out, she immediately ran to the police and said, "We stabbed her." Investigators asked her to elaborate, and Rachel said that she and Sheila filled up a car with cleaning supplies, shovels, and new clothing. The vehicle belonged to Sheila, and the two asked Skylar to come hang out, and they drove out to Greene County, Pennsylvania. There, the three girls roamed into the woods and jumped Skylar. Both Rachel and Sheila said that on the count of 3, they would stab her to death. They pulled out knives that they had hidden in their hoodie.
But why? It seemed like Rachel and Sheila here were friends with Skylar. Why would they just come up with a plan to take Skylar out in the woods and stab their own friend? There's got to be a reason. Did Skylar do something to them? It better not be over a fucking boy. It better not be something like, oh, Skylar talked to my boyfriend, or my ex-boyfriend, Skylar talked to him, or Skylar was talking to a boy that I like, so we're going to stab her. It better not be over a freaking boy or something.
And easily overpowered Skylar. But Skylar was able to break Rachel's knife out of her grip and drive it into Rachel's ankle, which caused her to screech and run off. While Rachel retreated, Sheila remained and continued her attack, all while her friend screamed out.
Underground says it's usually over jealousy. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Underground. I hope this whole situation of Skylar being killed wasn't over a guy or something, you know?
Why. When the two murderers were sure that Skylar was no longer alive, they tried to bury her, but later settled for leaving her under some leaves and scraps. Then the two just drove off and continued with their lives. So surely the two must have had a very good reason for doing something so rash and evil.
What's the reason?
Investigators asked Rachel why they did it. She simply said, "We just didn't like her anymore." Police were able.
What? We just didn't like her. Don't hang out with her anymore. Yeah, if Skylar considered you two good friends and all of a sudden you're like, we don't want to hang out with you anymore. Yeah, it's going to hurt her feelings. She's probably going to be sad, but at least she would still be alive. We don't like her anymore, so we're just going to stab her. That's like the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
Able to locate Skylar's remains on January 16th, 2013. But one strange thing
That's so
about the case
dumb.
was, even though Sheila knew that her crimes were revealed, she attempted to avoid reality online. For example, she would upload a photo of the trio with the caption, "Rest easy, Skylar. You'll always be my best friend." Officials struggled
nerve
at
of
securing
her.
a true motive from the duo, but there were
What
a couple
nerve?
of theories. One of which seemed to be that Skylar knew some secrets about Sheila and Rachel, and those two didn't want her to reveal them.
Landrick says you can't 100% trust anyone. Yeah, that's scary. I mean, you always hope that like your close friends and your family, you can trust them. I don't have anyone personally in my life who I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can fully trust them. All my family and friends, I would hope they would never do anything like this to me, but I guess you're right. It's hard to trust anyone 100%.
Skylar's diary also hinted at this possibility. Sheila pled not guilty, but was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. Rachel pled guilty and received a reduced sentence of 30 years. Now, apparently, Rachel actually got married in prison in the women's only facility, and the reason I'm telling you this is because one of those secrets that Skylar possibly held was Rachel and Sheila's romantic relationship. It was speculated that the primary reason that Sheila and Rachel agreed to take their friend's life was because they believed they wouldn't be accepted if they were exposed. However, neither one has confirmed this.
Are you kidding me?
Was Rachel and Sheila's romantic relationship.
Are you kidding me? So there's speculation that they were gay, Rachel and Sheila, and they didn't want Skylar exposing them? There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's so sad. There is absolutely zero reasons why Skylar should have ever been killed. That is just ridiculous.